Welcome to Weekend Ag Matters from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Join us for an in-depth look at Iowa agriculture. Here's your host, Riley Smith.
As rainy weather has given way to cooler temperatures, we can only hope that the state fair, which is in only a couple weeks, will have this kind of weather too. Welcome into this week's edition of Weekend Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. Russ Parker, Dustin Hoffmann, and Mark Magnuson will join us later on in the show. As for right now, let's start with a quick look at the news headlines. A new study by the Joint Economic Committee Democrats found that farmers of key crops in the U.S. spent $1.4 billion more on diesel fuel during the 2025-26 planting season than they did last season. The increase in diesel spending to plant corn, soybeans, wheat, cotton, and rice was a 63% jump year over year. Illinois, Iowa, and Minnesota had the highest increase overall. According to Michigan Farm News, the cost didn't take into account other war-related increases, such as the increased cost of running diesel generators that power some greenhouses or the increases at the pump that farmers and truckers face when they drive products to market. Farms.com says the average farmer paid roughly $1,500 more to refill a typical on-farm fuel tank compared to peak costs experienced during the 2025 planting season. In other news, the Iowa Cattlemen's Association continues to deliver results for Iowa cattle producers, both in Iowa and across the nation. At the National Cattlemen's Beef Association summer business meeting held in Denver, Colorado earlier this month, ICA led several successful efforts to strengthen national policy in two critical areas. First area being conservation and grazing, ICA led the way on the update and modernization of NCBA's Conservation Reserve Program policy, along with Kansas, Illinois, and Wisconsin. The policy amendment focused on giving NCBA stronger direction to support grazing as a primary conservation tool within CRP, driving marginal land to become long-term pasture, and advocating for cost-share tools to be extended to enrollees to ensure grazing infrastructure is supported. The other area was equipment and regulations. ICA and the Kansas Livestock Association were the leading drivers behind the new NCBA policy, directing advocacy for the removal of diesel exhaust fluid, or DEF, systems without penalty, eliminating selective catalytic reduction systems, and opposing any future regulation/legislation that uses exhaust gas recirculation systems. As Congress continues its work on the Farm Bill, the opportunity to advance these priorities has never been stronger. ICA is committed to ensuring CRP benefits both the environment and cattle producers by expanding grazing opportunities and supporting long-term pasture as we rebuild the nation's cow herd. And in our final news story, the USDA will begin reopening the southern border to cattle imports from Mexico this month after determining conditions have improved in the fight against New World screwworm. The Agriculture Department says the Douglas, Arizona port of entry will reopen August 24th for cattle from Mexico's Sonora state. Additional ports at Santa Teresa and Columbus, New Mexico could reopen later if Mexico continues meeting animal health requirements. Every animal entering the U.S. will undergo a full USDA inspection for signs of New World screwworm. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins says, quote, "The closure of the southern ports of entry for the last year has been a tough but necessary action to control the spread of New World screwworm in Mexico and protect the American livestock industry," end quote. USDA says reopening plans remain flexible and could be paused if the screwworm risk increases. And that's all the time we have for news headlines this week. Check out the rest of our daily ag news stories at iowaagnet.com. And while you're there, go ahead and sign up for our daily e-newsletter to get those stories delivered to you every day. We'll go ahead and kick it over to Russ Parker with his faith-based food for thought right here on Weekend Ag Matters.
I was at the theater the other day, and a young girl walked up to me and said hello. Then she proudly announced that it was her birthday. She had just turned 8 years old. Trying to be funny, I smiled and said if I was 8 years old again, it would probably kill me. Her mother laughed, but the little girl didn't. I don't think I'll be using that joke on another 8-year-old anytime soon. That little exchange reminded me of the movie called The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. It's based on a short story by F. Scott Fitzgerald and tells the story of a man who ages backward instead of forward. Imagine having all the wisdom and life experience of an 80-year-old while living in the body of a child. You would already know the importance of kindness, forgiveness, family, faith, and making wise decisions. You would understand that time passes quickly and that every relationship matters. Yet because of your age, you wouldn't have the freedom or the ability to put much of that wisdom into practice. Perhaps instead of wishing we were young again, we should ask whether we're using the wisdom that God has already given us. Moses wrote in Psalm 90, verse 12, "Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." He wasn't asking God for more years. He was asking for the wisdom to make the most of the life that God had given to him. And that's where the Christian story differs from Benjamin Button. The movie imagines somehow reversing our life. The Christian life isn't about reversing our life, it's about redeeming our life. God doesn't promise to erase our past or undo our mistakes or let us relive our younger years. Instead, He redeems every season of life. He can use our victories to encourage others, our failures to teach humility, our disappointments to deepen our faith, and even our suffering to draw us closer to Him. In God's hands, nothing is wasted. Life is a way of teaching us valuable lessons, doesn't it? We learn that words can heal or hurt. We discover that forgiveness is better than carrying bitterness. We realize the people we love are far more important than the things we own. And if we've been paying attention, we also learn that God's faithfulness has carried us through every season of our lives. Benjamin Button leaves us wondering what it would be like to live life backwards. Scripture invites us to do something far better, to live every day looking forward, trusting that God can use every chapter of our story for His purpose and His glory. I still wouldn't want to be an 8-year-old again, not because 8 wasn't wonderful, but because I wouldn't want to give up everything God has taught me since then. The years have brought joy and heartache, success and failure, laughter and tears. But through it all, they've also brought a deeper understanding of God's faithfulness. Food for thought, I hope. This is Russ Parker. Have a blessed day.
Thanks, Russ, and that's it for segment 1 of this week's episode. As a reminder, you can find the full episode of Weekend Ag Matters and much more by heading on over to our website at iowaagnet.com. Coming up after this short break, Dustin has his monthly chat with Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Naig. This is Weekend Ag Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
This year at the Iowa State Fair, Fair Spirit meets 250 years of American history in a celebration across the fair. See the America 250 Iowa display and a permanent sculpture created just for the fair. Walk the Iowa Veterans Memorial Walkway honoring service and sacrifice. Experience 250 years of the American flag, along with red, white, and blue contests and fair favorites. Then look to the sky for drone shows glowing in red, white, and blue, lighting up the fair like never before. From history to celebration, it all comes together at the Iowa State Fair. Learn more at iowastatefair.org.
August 13th through the 23rd.
Welcome back to Weekend Ag Matters. Here's your host, Dustin Hoffmann.
Welcome back to Weekend Ag Matters. I'm Dustin Hoffmann. We're covering a lot of ground this month with Secretary Naig. We'll start with crop conditions as Iowa moves through pollination, and then talk about county fairs, the Iowa State Fair, Iowa's plans for America 250's Harvest Festival, and finish with conservation efforts and water quality.
Have you seen anything in your travels about any damage that's come from some of that flooding and some of the large hail we saw in a couple places?
Yeah, unfortunately, and of course, if it's happened to you, it's significant. But I would still say, and this is I'm going to knock on wood as I say this, but that we have not seen widespread severe weather when it does happen. And so to be sure, there are places that have had. I mean, my goodness, some of these rain events, something like we're getting twice as much rain as you should expect to get in the month of July came in a matter of 2 to 3 days, and some really localized heavy rain. Some wind, I've heard of some green snap, some pretty significant hail, but again, you're talking about pretty isolated. And there are some places, though, in the state that are starting to trend to the dry side. And of course, it's just that time of year where the crop has got high demand. We've had the heat, and so we've got to continue to see that active weather pattern. And actually, we have been here over the last couple of days. So by and large, I'm going to continue to say, and I've been all over, Dustin. I've been in Northwest, Northeast, South Central, and headed east again today. And what I see is largely things look pretty darn good, although the top end of the yield could be off in some localized places.
And we were thinking about that with the idea that right now corn is obviously the pollination is its most stressful time. And to have that heat when the corn needs it is great because corn loves the heat. It's getting that shot of rain during a difficult time. But then also we've had this week where it's cooled off. So it kind of takes the stress off that corn a little bit while it's trying to pollinate.
For everybody, right? For livestock as well, those overnight temperatures going down is really important. And again, do you have the moisture to go with it? So yeah, again, I'm seeing a lot of there's some hay that folks are trying to get up. You're trying to dodge some raindrops there too. Lots of fungicide spraying happening across the state. So it's just a really active time. And again, we need that active weather pattern, and by and large, we're getting that.
And of course, as you're doing those travels, you're getting to see a lot of county fairs, a lot of functions going on, a lot of activities. Tell us about some of the things you got going on and what you've been seeing out there.
Oh my gosh. Well, again, it's a great time of year to do it. First of all, I love our county fairs and they're unique community events. Every fair is different. It takes a tremendous amount of volunteers and local sponsorship. And I love to get to them and to be able to support them and to encourage folks, get out to the fair. A county fair, one, it's great for our youth, and I'll talk about that, but it's also an opportunity for folks that aren't involved in agriculture. It might be one of the most impactful or the closest that they'll get to farming or to agriculture in any given year. And so we should take advantage of that and make sure that we're taking that chance to connect with folks and educate folks. But I have to tell you that the thing I love most is going down through the livestock barns or going through the 4-H building or being in the show ring and watching our young kids competing. It's a chance to learn some skills, some life skills, hard work, dedication, ownership, and then you got to go and compete. And maybe you do well, and maybe you don't do as well as you'd like, but you need to deal with the consequences of that. And I just love to see that playing out. Moms and dads and grandpas and grandmas and the community members surrounding these kids. It's a tremendous thing.
And of course, all that culminates next month, as we mentioned, at the state fair.
Well, I always look forward to it, and I hope you're going to be in the same spot, so I know right where you are in your barn there. But yeah, it's a great. This year, it's always special. Nothing compares to the Iowa State Fair, but this year especially, we'll have the America 250 theme associated with it. The theme of the fair is Fair Spirit, calling on the spirit of 76. Celebration. And so you're going to see America 250, a lot of patriotic, red, white, and blue, special commemorations and activities and foods and all kinds of things. So I think that's going to be extra special this year to be able to celebrate in that way. But of course, Department of Ag, we have everything from the governor's charity steer show, which the governor and I are already trading, sparring a little bit on getting in the ring. We have so much fun with that. It's a great cause, great kids, great cattle. Great charity cause. But also, my favorite day of the year, honestly, one of my favorite days of the year anyway, is the Century and Heritage Farm presentation. And that'll be in the Historic Livestock Pavilion the second week of the year, the full week of the fair, the second Thursday. And we will be this year recognizing a record number of heritage farms that have been in a family for 150 years, and then some Century farms as well. Over 500 families will be present. It's going to be a long day, but I am so excited to be able to greet every one of those families on the stage, present them with their award, and hear their stories.
Now, of course, you mentioned the 250 celebration going on during the fair, but also Iowa, and you've been the vice chair of that committee that's been working on that. You guys have announced what the big celebration is going to be for the state to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the country.
Yeah, so a lot of states had picked themes, and this was actually done months and months ago. In Iowa, a group got together and chose this harvest theme, Harvest Festival. Very fitting. You and I have been talking about it really throughout the year, and that's this idea that what makes Iowa's role in the American experience unique is certainly something related to agriculture. The fact that we have had the food and agriculture system that we have in this state, in this country, has been meaningful from our founding. You can't have economic security and national security if you don't have food and ag and energy security. And so Iowa plays an outsized role in that U.S. agriculture commitment. And so that's the whole idea here, is this is a way to sort of bookend the America 250 celebrations. Of course, it's been going on throughout the year. This is a great way to put an exclamation point on it. Have an entirely uplifting, celebratory Who doesn't love a good harvest festival actually occurring during harvest, of course, which creates some challenges to get farmers involved. But hey, that's all right, because this is something that is actually happening in our state. Why not celebrate that? Completely uplifting, free, family-friendly, beautiful event. The signature event will be around the Capitol grounds in Des Moines, and really actually highlighting our farmers, our agriculture, our ag community, but also our veterans.
And it's also, I think, fitting that we're doing this in October, the harvest season, because of the fact that, you look at so many states, they probably want to do it in the summer when you have more tourism, where you have more 4th of July timeframe. This is supposed to be a year-long celebration. So by having this in the fall, that's really helping put an exclamation point on the fact that this is a whole year-round thing.
100%. We talked about that, and we said, a lot of these celebrations will be done around the 4th of July, as they should be. But you know what? There are some amazing 4th of July celebrations already that occur in this state. And, we got to talking about the fact that we didn't want to take away from those celebrations. Those are great community events. This is something that is wholly different. It'll only happen once. There's never going to be another harvest festival like it. There's no script for it. And we're just doing it. And I think in that way, it's totally unique, totally special, and a reminder that we are doing this, throughout the year. Some interesting things. So you got America 250. Actually, the state of Iowa will turn 180, and little things like the Century Farm Program. I should have mentioned that'll be the 50th anniversary. That program was actually initiated during the bicentennial back in 1976. And so we're just hitting all kinds of milestones this year, and it is a celebration throughout the year.
And that's interesting because, some of those Century Farms that were in that first go-round will get to be Heritage Farms, this go-around as well. So that'll be
100%.
kind of a full circle event. But, also we've been talking so much about celebrations and stuff, which rightfully so, but other things that are going on from IDAL's perspective, of course, conservation, water quality still being very much talked about in the state. And you had a few more announcements since we last spoke as well.
Very top of mind. And we want to turn that top of mind awareness and even questions and even challenging agriculture to turn into something positive, which is action. And so I really am trying to turn this into how do we then use this as to continue to build momentum. We set another record for conservation adoption in the state of Iowa last year. That's 5 years in a row. And that's remarkable. That only happens when there's hundreds of partners. I mean, there's a team of people, hundreds of people working every day with hundreds of partners and thousands of landowners to get practices done, working in the urban landscape, working in the rural landscape. And coming out of the legislative session, we secured those additional dollars to help build out water treatment infrastructure in big cities like Des Moines area, smaller communities with grants and loans, and also this water monitoring as well, but also investing upstream from the city of Des Moines in the greater Des Moines watershed, 22 counties. And we've really been rolling out. First, it was an enhanced cover crop cost share incentive, lifting the cap on the number of acres you could enroll. We expanded our stream side buffer program that allows landowners and farmers to put land into a buffer strip program, but also still be able to hay and graze that land. And we'll continue to make some announcements here. Coming soon, an expansion of our cattle and conservation working lands program. Again, trying to just convert row crop acres that are less productive and environmentally sensitive into still working lands, though, pasture ground, hay ground, using extended rotations, those types of things. And we'll be doing an expansion of that. And then coming even later is going to be some work around nutrient management, soil testing, some of those types of things as we get into the fall. So stay tuned. There's more to come, but we really are pushing. I've gotten some updates here just recently, Dustin, and we are experiencing very high demand for cover crop cost share. So I would encourage folks, if you're Iowans listening here and you're interested, get into your county conservation office because we're having strong demand pull on that program.
That again was Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Naig. Mark Magnuson will be in next to wrap up the show. Stay with us on Weekend Ag Matters.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
Welcome back to Weekend Ag Matters. Here's Mark Magnuson.
Mark Magnuson for the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and I'm joined today by Ryan Schnoes. He is here with us at the Corteva and Pioneer Field Day at the Johnston campus. And Ryan, I know you gave a presentation just a little bit ago about NEXTA Biologicals, and I remember talking with you last year that you really kind of gave me a little bit of a different way to look at things in terms of, I always kind of thought of trying to build up your yield, but in reality, it's more having that starting point with that top yield and then fending off all of those stressors. Could you kind of explain that a little bit further, please?
Sure. So the example that I like to use is, David Hula, for example, he's proven what's possible, right? 600 and almost 23 bushel. So we know that we've got a lot of great potential in that bag of corn or soybeans. But the day we dump it into the planter, essentially Mother Nature just continues to take that away from us. So you could look at it and say, are we adding yield? Sure, but frankly what we're doing is we're just slowing down that natural progression that takes place because Mother Nature, frankly, is chipping away at us every single day. There's just not too many days as beautiful as today where everything feels good. So when we have stress, you can look at that and say, yep, I'm losing a couple bushel that day. And over time, that's how we end up with, whether it's 179 or 180 bushel average across the U.S., it's because they all started with a lot, but Mother Nature took some away from others in a bigger fashion.
So when it comes to choosing the biological that's right for a farmer, what is that starting point? Because there's several different options. It's not an all-in-one thing.
Right.
So what would a farmer be thinking about when they're coming to NEXTA and saying, hey, I'm interested in biologicals, but I don't really know where to start?
Yeah. So I actually carry around a deck of cards, 14 cards, and on those cards, there's 7 corn stresses and 7 common soybean stresses. And I'll hand them to you, Mark, and I'll say, I want you to look at these cards, and if it's something you face on your farm, I want you to hold on to it. If it's something that you got under control, hand it back to me. I'm undefeated so far. Nobody's ever handed me back all 14 cards. And the reason they haven't is because these are common stresses. Even the best farmers deal with these. So where do you start? I think you look at the stress that you feel is costing you the most yield. And for some, that's early on stand establishment or planting into cool, wet conditions. For others, it's right now. And maybe everything goes really well until we get into grain fill. And then it's always, I feel like heat and or lack of rain is what kills me. So it's all about taking a customer by customer approach, right product, right acre, and making sure that the product I recommend is going to match up with what your challenge or your opportunity is. Instead of taking this broad brush approach and saying, oh, you just got to spread this like hot sauce on every acre, you're going to love it.
So essentially, it's not trying to tackle everything at once. It's more pinpointing those hotspot issues for you and then tailoring that approach that way.
To me, that's where I encourage people to start. Start with your biggest challenge and build from there. How do you eat an elephant? A lot of bites, but it's one bite at a time. So find something that works for you, that addresses your major challenge, and then you can continue to build from there, whether that's in the same growing season or in the next.
Ryan, in a year like this year where our margins are so tight, farmers are making those difficult decisions, have you felt any more resistance from farmers when it comes to the biological discussion, or have they still been very open-minded to it?
Yeah, in my opinion, which is just me, I feel like they've been very open to it. And I guess I can speak for, Iowa, which is home to me and I know the best. But, if you walked out in a cornfield, there's a lot of yield potential out there. And although maybe prices aren't great, they know they need to bushel their way through it. And so knowing that there's good potential, they're asking themselves, what can I do to hang on to this? I'm up by 14 points in the fourth quarter. I just got to hang on to the lead. So there's actually been a lot of receptiveness to doing what we can to try to help mitigate, whether that's kernel abortion or making sure that we're creating heavy grain.
And then at the end of your discussion, you mentioned that much like Corteva or Pioneer would with any product, you're going to stand behind it with that backing of the research and all of those studies of trials that go into it. So how does that approach work on the biological side?
Yeah, very, very similarly. We've got multiple different approaches. Obviously, we test some through replicated research. A lot of it is on farm, where we actually test it with our own customers, whether that be a split planter application, it could be a split field, but it's really all about that individual grower getting a chance to test it on their own farm. One thing that I found in this business over the last 2.5 years is they'll ask the question, maybe it worked well for you, Mark, but is it going to work for me? And I say the best way to find out if it's going to work for you is for you to look at it yourself under your management practices, looking at it on your farm. And truly, that's when we'll understand. But certainly, we're going to be able to provide a lot of overall data to make the suggestion that, yes, this has got a good return on investment. And that's been paramount for us this year because nobody's really looking to spend $5 to make $5 back. I mean, that's kind of silly. But if I told you, let's play a game where you spend $5 and I hand you a $20 bill back, you're interested in something like that. So having a good return on investment and science to back it up, that seems to go over pretty well with most producers.
He is Ryan Schnoes with NEXTA Biolocals. We're here at the Corteva and Pioneer Field Day in Johnston. Ryan, thanks so much for the time today. Really appreciate it, and have a great rest of the day.
Yeah, appreciate the conversation, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you to Ryan Schnoes of NEXTA Biolocals for joining us here today on Weekend Ag Matters. That's going to bring us to the end of today's episode, and you can find this episode and all of our past episodes of Weekend Ag Matters under the podcast tab. Thank you to Dustin. Thank you to Russ Parker and Riley Smith. I'm Mark Magnuson. You've been listening to Weekend Ag Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.